Greetings, my friends. All right, I'm going to go ahead, try to get this overview of Lord of the Rings out of the way, the whole trilogy. If anything positive came of me flipping out about the ending of Better Call Saul, it's that it's pushing me to make some reviews of stuff that I like. I mean, I think this is going to be maybe the only one for a while, because I recently got through the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I was just absolutely blown away, man. Yes, I did see the movies when they came out when I was a kid. I remember one time I was hanging out at this house with my friends and we were partying and stuff. And I was like, bro, let's get super baked and watch all three of the Lord of the Rings movies again. I don't know if we ever got all the way through them again. But the point is, when I watched these movies originally, way back in the day, I don't think I was mature enough as a viewer to really just appreciate what these movies have to offer. I always liked Fellowship of the Ring. I remember thinking that was my favorite movie ever when I first saw it in theaters. But this time around, I probably liked all three movies equally, if not thinking that they kept getting better as it went on. So I'm not really like a professional critic or reviewer. I have some insecurities about my ability to review things. I'm just gonna put it out there because I really got a lot of love for this trilogy, man. So let's try to go somewhat in order. Some of the themes that I noticed. First of all, the temptation of the ring and this idea of the hobbits being meek and weak. I'm seeing some symbolism because as we all know, Tolkien is a Roman Catholic. I'm seeing this theme of the meek shall inherit the earth and original sin because, Gandalf, super powerful wizard, an absolute force to be reckoned with. We saw the strength of men. We saw the absolute cunning battle skills of Legolas. When I was a kid, Legolas was my favorite character. Now I'm pretty sure Aragorn edges him out heavily for me. Big Aragorn fan. We'll get into that later. But man, Legolas's combat ability still blown away. So some of my favorite themes here. I'm just going to have to get this out. Probably pretty unorganized here. I'm just going to say things as they come to my mind. Some of my favorite scenes is just every individual temptation scene with the ring. And it seems like all of my favorite temptation scenes were in Fellowship of the Ring. Gandalf says, Frodo, do not give me that ring. Do not give this ring to me. Because he knows that temptation within himself to harness the power of the ring. And then you see it in Bilbo Baggins. That scene always kind of creeped me out, where I think Frodo was putting on the mithril armor or something, and he sees the ring and he gets all purple in the face and reaches for it. Then of course there's the elf, the elf wizard girl in the woods. Man, she goes on that borderline terrifying speech about if she had the ring, there would be a queen. And man, I just don't know if this could be more sophisticated than just spurging out and soying out over the Lord of the Rings. So let's get to Aragorn now. Aragorn was my favorite character as someone who's dancing around the idea of identifying as a monarchist and studying monarchy. I mean, what better king could you ask for? There's the kind of king that was in, Boromir's town, who is in the castle eating turkey legs and eating like a glutton while he's getting the hobbit to sing for him. And then there's a king like Aragorn who is in the front lines, fighting alongside everyone. Gotta jump to Return of the King when they're outside of Mordor and that ugly guy, that ugly thing with the big teeth tells them that Frodo was tortured and killed. as a means of trying to demoralize them. You know, that he said that he wouldn't believe it, and he's the first one to charge into battle. And he says, "For Frodo." That's got to be one of my favorite moments. For Frodo, he charges into battle, and then they all kind of just look at each other like, and start charging behind him. Absolutely epic. So then you look at the contrast between Aragorn and Boromir, going back to Fellowship of the Ring, because obviously Boromir dies at the end of Fellowship of the Ring. Let's go see what Wrinkles is doing, because she's making a lot of noise back there while I'm trying to do this review. I think Rinky wants some attention. Yeah, this is just going to be a mess, guys. It just is what it is. Okay, she's playing with the curtain. It looks like you're not doing that anymore, huh, Wrinkles? So, Boromir and Aragorn are both ferocious warriors, but Boromir lacks the wisdom and temperament of Aragorn. And I think where we first see that is in Fellowship of the Ring, where Boromir is urging them to go to his town. Now, I wish I could remember the name of it right now, but I just can't. I think I'd love to get one of these maps of the entire little Hobbit, Lord of the Rings world or whatever. I'd love to get me one of those maps, man, and hang it up as a poster. I definitely remember the name Minas Morgul, because there's this very strange atmospheric black metal band. This has always been such a unique taste in music for me. I'm thinking about going back to it. It's got great drumming. One of the guys involved in the project has like a PhD in drumming or something. Summoning. If you check out the band Summoning from the album Minas Morgul on, because their first album was like pure black metal. Anyway, this is just an absolutely soying out over Lord of the Rings. Boromir wants to go to his town, and Aragorn urges against it because he doesn't trust the temptations of men. And I thought that was kind of a hint at nationalism and the kind of foolishness of being blinded by your bias for your own kind. And a good, balanced king like Aragorn, who ultimately ended up with an elf, knows not to trust men. And I know I risk getting labeled a cuck for this, or making people, oh man, I knew Lord of the Rings was cucked. No, if you haven't developed that maturity to see through your own kind and to realize the higher ideals of Christ and God, the Word of God, and these kind of things, then you're still a fool and you still have a lot to learn. Obviously, Boromir was filled with temptation for the ring, and Frodo is weak and he's getting cornered by Boromir near the end. And that's when he realizes he needs to do the journey on his own. And then, no one could resist the temptation of the ring. Not even Frodo, obviously, when he gets to the fires of Mordor and he says, "The ring is mine," and he puts it on. Ultimately, it was because of Smeagol, Gollum, who, by the way, was probably my least favorite part of the movie. I don't want to say the guy's a bad actor. Maybe it's like the CGI is a little bit dated and corny. If it were up to me, Smeagol's character would have been a lot darker, less cheesy, maybe more reserved, not just so flamboyant with the way he talks. It was a little bit cheesy. It came off a little bit nerdy to me. And then probably my second least favorite would be not Frodo himself, but there's just these moments with Frodo. Every time he gets stabbed or hurt. Oh, and now the cats are fighting. Cats! Hey! Stop! Yeah, every time Frodo gets stabbed, he just kind of makes that dramatic face in the camera and all those noise. I don't know what it was about that. Again, I don't want to say it was bad acting. Just kind of like, nyeh. Something about that rubbed me the wrong way. But no one could resist the temptation of the ring. But Aragorn showed great measure when he was holding the ring and then he put it in Frodo's hand and clasped it and said, I would have come with you until the end. I would have fought with you until the end. But he respects Frodo's decision to go out on his own. It's very interesting in the Two Towers. Whatever that girl was, she had some sort of relation to the king in the Two Towers. I forgot what happened at the end with Aragorn getting back with the elf chick who, man, she was banging. She was absolutely banging. I thought maybe that they were going to end up together. But yeah, ultimately, that doesn't manifest and she ends up with someone else. And then Aragorn gets back with the elf chick. I thought the depiction of romance in these movies, maybe just the most beautiful depiction of romance in any films ever. Some people in my comments are comparing Game of Thrones to Lord of the Rings. What is it about discussing television on my channel? Just, man, everybody and their opinions. And I got opinions too. I've never seen Game of Thrones, but what I have seen from Game of Thrones is some of the absolute smut tier sex scenes. Please don't compare Game of Thrones to Lord of the Rings, guys. Just cringe. And I haven't seen Game of Thrones, but the way that sex is depicted, one of the main reasons I haven't watched Game of Thrones yet is because I know that it's just riddled with graphic smut tier sex scenes. The romance in Lord of the Rings is absolutely unparalleled. The brushing of a hand across the face, the deep looking into their eyes, the gazes. There's one makeout scene at the very end. Well, there was a couple of makeout scenes, but at the very end, the passionate making out because, you didn't know if they were going to end up together. The look in the father's face when he's giving up his daughter, he's not doing what he wanted. He's giving up his wants for his daughter so that she can be happy. A lot of people pointed that out. And then, of course, there's the grand finale, the scene that brings tears to everyone's eyes, me being no exception. A couple of little tears after you get through this epic quest, and the hobbits are awkwardly bowing to Aragorn, and Aragorn says, "No, you bow to no one." And then everyone, all of the free peoples and species, the elves and the dwarfs and all the people and everybody, they all bow to the hobbits. And that's just such a powerful moment. This has probably been a pretty sloppy, spurgy review. I think I just covered about all of the points, but that moment is so powerful because it touches over this theme of the meekness of the hobbits. The way that Aragorn fought, the way that Gimli fought. There's a lot of comic relief with Gimli. He's short, and we laugh at it. But the reason he has no problem laughing at that is you see how he fights in the battlefield. And, there's the joke about him getting tossed and, don't tell Legolas that you tossed me. But he can fight. Bro, the dwarf's fighting ability is absolutely not questioned. He's in that competition with Legolas, counting the bodies. Man, the battles. I mean, what can be said about the battles? When I was a kid, the battles were my favorite part. And I'm not going to say they're not my favorite part. I mean, it's such a relevant part of the story. There's some movies that are just like, it's an action movie. And I'm not particularly a fan of action movies. I don't view Lord of the Rings as an action movie, but an action movie fan, this could be your favorite movie ever. It's a masterpiece, you guys. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is an absolute masterpiece. 11 out of 10. I always thought it was strange that, it only won a couple of Academy Awards for The Fellowship, and then for Two Towers and Return of the King, it was a clean sweep. They won every single category they were nominated in. Now, as an adult viewer, I think I can understand that. I could probably give Two Towers and Return of the King the nod over Fellowship of the Ring. Fellowship of the Ring is amazing. I probably still like Fellowship better than the Two Towers, but that's tough, man. My memory led me astray for Two Towers. I remember like that ending battle taking up the entire movie, and there was a lot leading up to that. You know, there's the battle where Aragorn falls off of the cliff, and you think maybe that he is passed, and there's a tragedy behind that. But the tragedy of Fellowship of the Ring is unmatched, where they're grieving for Gandalf. That was a very powerful scene. Everything about Gandalf, man, I really loved Gandalf's character. He maybe was like second or third for my favorite. I remember my dad said that when we watched Fellowship in theaters, he's like, you know, that big troll thing that ended up stabbing Frodo, it seemed like that thing was like more ferocious and powerful than the whatever the demon was called, the Boggendorf or whatever, the Boggendorf, the bog creature, because he said there wasn't really a battle with it, that ultimately Gandalf held it off. But, you know, not trying to throw shade at my dad's opinion, because I see where he's coming from there. But, yeah, that standing up to the Boggendorf, whatever creature, absolutely powerful. You shall not pass. That was a magical feat, because the combat skills of Legolas and Aragorn and all of them, that wouldn't have been a factor against this thing. This was where magic was required. And, you know, this is still where I have to say, you know, Fellowship, just thematically, the epicness of Fellowship, it probably still beats out Two Towers for me. But the trilogy is just, it beats the shit out of Star Wars, man. I can't help but thinking about Clerks 2 and the commentary from whatever his name is, you know, saying that there's only one trilogy. You know, for me, I recently watched through Star Wars as well, and it's part of what gave me motivation to watch Lord of the Rings again, going through the trilogies. You know, for Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back takes the cake. That was the best one. I don't really like A New Hope. I'm not really especially fond of Return of the Jedi. I would rank it number 1, Empire Strikes Back, number 2, Return of the Jedi, and then number 3, last place, A New Hope. But man, I just think it's not even close. I think this Lord of the Rings trilogy is just, I'm going to have to get it on DVD. I'm already considering watching through it again, you know, maybe like a couple weeks from now or a couple of months when I run out of things that I want to watch. I am going to watch this series that's being recommended to me. I'm going to have to look it up. The Last Kingdom is what it's called, I believe. Somebody's recommending it to me here. Last Kingdom, right? Yep. Last Kingdom. Yeah, I am going to check that out. But what else can be said, man? You know, the Christian themes are the meekness of the hobbits. Because, yeah, I think I got lost trying to make this point. Frodo can't fight, bro. There was that one scene where Sam in The Return of the King, he takes out a few orcs, but you see that he was wearing the ring when that happened, and that shows you some of the power that the ring holds. And then he's tempted by the ring, the temptations of the ring, the temptations of men, Aragorn's wisdom compared to Boromir, you know, not being blinded by his own kind, and then, you know, he ends up with an elf chick as well. But, you know, I mean, who wouldn't end up with that chick? That's maybe when I'm thinking of like the kind of girl I'd want to marry, just beauty, just absolute beauty. A lot of girls today are sexy, you know, they got the big busts, they got the big yoga pants booties, but, and you know, I'm pretty sure she was rocking with something underneath that cloak, but just gorgeous, just divine beauty, and the expressions of the romance, hand rubbing across the cheek and the gazes in their eyes, and best romance ever. Most epic, best battles. I don't really particularly like action movies. I get bored. I loved all the action in this series. The epic storytelling, just all leading up to you bow to no one. The humbleness of the king. Aragorn's my favorite. Such a great leader. I think everybody could agree. People who don't like monarchy, people who are like, oh my gosh, kings, fascism, we need democracy. Well, but what if you had a king like Aragorn, who's gonna lead in battle, who's going to bow to hobbits and just it's so good. What am I missing? Least favorite things. Smeagol, but he's an important character and it's not that big of a deal. I don't like the faces that Frodo makes. That's just my problem. The acting of Frodo is great. There's a couple, the one critique, and it's just, I'm probably wrong here, but some of the peril that they were in, mainly it was in Fellowship, where you look at some of these hordes of Orokites and orcs, and then there's like Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas taking on them all. And that's a recurring theme for me, is like, could they really take all of these orcs? But as the series goes on, it's like, man, these guys are badass fighters, and I'm sold, and I buy it. And like, yeah, they are taking on all of these orcs. Probably the biggest one was in, again, Fellowship of the Ring, where they're in the mines, and they're completely surrounded by orcs. I mean, there was so many orcs in that cave. But ultimately, the Boggendorf thing shows up and scares them all away. So you have to kind of think in that moment, it's like, okay, ultimately, they're lucky that thing showed up. Because I don't know about them taking all of those orcs. That might have been the end of their little quest, but maybe not. I don't know. So we're 22 minutes in now. I think I've pretty much covered everything in a very sloppy manner. That's why I was less hesitant to just air out my dirty laundry with Better Call Saul, because, I didn't like the show as much. I loved the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm immediately going to get it on DVD. I might have to get it on Blu-ray. I heard there's an extended version. Bring it on. It's just so great, man. And ultimately, what makes me roll my eyes when people compare it to Game of Thrones is like, bro, that's secular smut made by probably pagans. And I haven't seen it, but this is made by Roman Catholic Tolkien. I see the Christian themes. It really seems to come down to the importance of the meek hobbits, who were absolutely essential to the quest, and they were the quest. And it came down to Sam and Frodo making it to Mordor, where, no one escapes from temptation. No one escapes from sin. No one is clean of sin. And Frodo was tempted many times. And Frodo ultimately, that final moment in Mordor, the ring is mine. And, Smeagol, if it wouldn't have been for Gollum and Smeagol, maybe he wouldn't have had what it takes to throw the ring in the lava. So I suck at reviewing things, okay? This isn't a review. This is just me soying out over Lord of the Rings. This is just about as good as I envisioned it being. Am I missing anything? The battles were so good. Somebody said Twin Towers was their favorite. I understand, bro. And then some people were talking about, it's like, okay, get on with it for Return of the King, 4.5 hours. I did notice that the ending dragged on, but I enjoyed it, man. And I just thought all of it was necessary. And I couldn't appreciate it when I was a kid. Like, you need to be mature for this. You need to know what to look for. You need to be somebody with good taste to get through this series. But yeah, I mean, I feel like Return of the King, I could absolutely understand that being your favorite. For me, it's pretty close between Fellowship and Return of the King. Two Towers is great, probably the most epic battle in Two Towers, but for Frodo, that battle, that might have been my favorite battle. And when I'm talking about favorite battles, it's gonna have to be between Two Towers and Return of the King. You know, there's epic. It was more about the journey in Fellowship. It was more about the journey. Yeah, there was some epic battles there, but you know, nothing's gonna hold a battle to that final standoff in Two Towers. And then for Frodo, one of the most powerful, probably underrated moments for me. They're trying to demoralize them, and the king, Aragorn, who's absolutely fit to be king, he knows that it's demoralization. He can't know for sure whether or not it's true. This guy's rubbing it in that they tortured Frodo and his final moments were terrifying. And as a good king who leads his men into battle, it was a little bit irresponsible. He just yells for Frodo and then charges, and that look on the army is like, holy shit, like we better charge behind him too. The king is just throwing himself in it, man, almost irresponsibly, overcome by emotion, for he doesn't know if it's true, and he just says, we can't accept it because it's demoralizing. And oh man, Lord of the Rings for life. Maybe someday I'll have to read the books. A friend of mine, an old friend of mine, was recommending the Silmarillion for some background information. And I'm probably going to listen to Summoning. You know, maybe I'll throw a little bit of Summoning in this video. Or not. It's not worth, like, getting demonetized. But yeah, you know, Summoning has always been probably one of my weirdest tastes in music. A lot of black metal fans don't like it. Obviously, if you don't like black metal, you're not going to like it. But yeah, you know, check them out. Summoning. Minus Morgul onward. Those are like Lord of the Rings themed atmospheric black metal. It doesn't have blast beats and double bass. It's like cool electronic drum beats designed by someone who has a high level education in drums. So, almost half an hour of soy. I hope somebody enjoyed it, guys. If you loved Lord of the Rings as much as I do, maybe you'll dig this. I'm going to have to get the trilogy on Blu-ray. This will not be my last viewing of the show. God bless you, friends.